Tuesday, April 14th, 2026 to order at 6:30. And if everybody could please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Julie, if you could do roll call, please.
Supervisor Lametti.
Here.
Supervisor Cole.
Here.
Supervisor Olson.
Here.
Supervisor Hendrickson.
Here.
Supervisor Lucky.
Here.
And for the record, Alicia Morris, Treasurer, and Mark Allsides, Township Attorney.
Thank you. All right, just as a reminder, I've heard from community and staff that does a meeting minutes. Everybody, please make sure you talk into the microphone so it's recorded accurately. All right, we'll move into public forum. Is there anyone here to address public forum? Yep, Tony, come on up first.
Only the Tepo Creek. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep. You're good.
On the consent agenda, I would like you to move 6.5 and 6.6 into new business. And congratulate these two people for the time that they've put in and the wherewithal. In the business, we call it back scratching, but I think they need it for what they've put into all of this. And that was the best thing that the previous board did as far as putting us on para rather than what we had before, because if you didn't make the 10 years, you didn't get nothing. So para is a good thing, but I hope you can move those two and congratulate them for their service.
Yeah, well, I respect that. Are we okay recognizing them at the end of the consent agenda? Leave it in consent, but recognize them there?
Whatever, so
Yeah.
that they get public.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
No, great
Thank you.
recommendation. Thank you, Tony. All right, Derek, I'm gonna wait for you. Yep, come on up, sir. Hey, Al.
Al Hurtley, 229th Avenue Northeast. Just calling with the school forest. Sam was, I guess, not able to make it, so we moved the meeting to the school. And there were some things that came up that I thought maybe the town board would want to grant kind of an approval on. They're tentatively looking at May 2nd as a volunteer day in the forest. Apparently the boardwalk needs some repairs. There's some trees type of thing that have to come down. Is there a volunteer liability form that we need to kind of have? It's something that would have to be moved on. And we're kind of thinking about maybe setting up a volunteer sign up list for that day, possibly put one at the senior center, possibly do one here at the township, if that's okay to have that here. Sunnyside Church, and maybe also take a look at the Boy Scouts to try to get some of these specific projects that we want done with someone saying, hey, I can fix that boardwalk or I can clear that brush type of a thing. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention for your guidance on what we need to do. It's approaching pretty quick. And so if there's forms that we need, if there's something like that, if you could just either let myself or the principal know about it so we can move ahead and try to get some of this work done at a volunteer type basis. So I thank you for your time.
Yeah, we definitely do the volunteer forms. If you could work with Julie in the office, or Julie, if you need Al's contact, let me know and I can get that to you also.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Al.
And just as a reminder for the board, we've talked about kind of the volunteer form as it currently stands. One thing that I would do is, we've talked about there's no backstop, right? We don't have insurance that covers volunteers through MADIT. So you're knowingly taking that risk by using volunteers. There are liability waivers. We talked about the scope of those previously. If you have questions on that, let me know. But one thing I'd like to see changed on that form is acknowledging the type of work a particular individual will be tasked to do. Because when you're making a, knowing and intelligent decision to do something, there's an assumption of risk that's inherent to the particular task that you're performing. Using a chainsaw is much more dangerous than picking up pine cones. And so you want to make sure that the person who is doing the work is assuming the risk of the task to be done, not just a generic liability waiver. Courts would not look at that favorably.
On the top of that waiver, it's got a line up there as to what you're volunteering for. Could that be used if we just put more detail into that?
It would, and I would just include some of the main risks that are assumed on the form. So there's an acknowledgement of, I'm assuming I'm using a chainsaw, it may lead to injuries resulting from the chainsaw, limbs falling on me, whatever it may be. Think of a detailed list that would surround that.
Sure, I love that. Thank you. Derek, you also raised your hand, but do you want to do it as public comment or do you want to wait until we actually have, because we have it on the agenda to talk about? Probably talk about it. If you're going to be here for a little while, if you can be, talk about it when we talk about the topic. If that would be okay. Okay, let's do that. Let's hold off for there. Come on up.
Bryce Seacon, 225th Avenue Northeast. I'm just kind of curious what's going on with the roads, 227th and Martin Lake Drive. There's potholes. And they're wrecking my vehicles and tires. And we have to do an obstacle course. Either way we go. I live right in the middle of it all, right by Camp Sally. I know they're putting in new power lines and stuff like that. But I also heard that that road was supposed to be redone. And I heard it was supposed to be like last fall. And well, that's come and gone. I don't know what the agenda is on it, and I'd like to know. And I'd also like to get some of these craters filled in. I drive a bunch of different vehicles, big ones, small ones, and everyone's weaving around, and it's a danger. So I'd like to know, and I understand, some things may have gotten backed up on stuff, but at least temporarily fill the potholes in. Because I can't get out either way without hitting one or driving on the wrong side of the road on that.
So the section is for comment, but I will respond and say that Thursday we are going out and we're covering all the roads in the township on Thursday. So potholes, we'll get to those. They won't be a permanent fix because the asphalt plants aren't opening up yet to be able to do the hot patching, but we'll be covering up some of them holes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. Thank you. And one more. Yep. Come on up.
Yeah, those potholes are very bad. I was swerving, dodging them the other day and almost hit a jogger because of it. I wasn't paying attention, looking forward and, so yeah, that's
your,
definitely,
name and address.
oh, sorry. My name's Andrew. I live on 231st Lane Northeast and,
Last name, Andrew.
Johnson.
Thank you.
And, since variances have been on the topic lately, I figured I'd share my experience. I was planning on building a 30 by 40 pole building adjacent to my house. I was told I'd have to apply for a variance due to the low land on my property being so close to the building site. I checked with the DNR and they were giving me the okay. So $1,400 later for the variance, I was granted a little leeway. But afterwards, I was told I had to have the wetland delineated. So another $800 later, I had that complete. At this point, I realized I was 5 feet closer to the wetland than I anticipated. So I went to the zoning commission to work out a solution and was told I needed to apply for a second variance if I wanted to move my proposed building 5 feet closer towards the road, which was another $1,400, $1,350 to be exact. And God forbid you build it a foot taller, because then, yep, you guessed it, another $1,400 variance. So on top of that, they also wanted me to have my entire property surveyed, which would add even more expense. And I understand the need for a variance, but to have to pay for multiple on the same project for minor changes seems like robbery. At this point, I'm thousands of dollars in and haven't even stuck a shovel in the ground. And needless to say, I got fed up with the entire process and walked away. When I asked for documentation on where and how that variance money was spent, I got no response. Instead of working with the people to find solutions, it seems like the zoning commission is after the easy money. They don't bat an eye at all the junkyards with the ripped up tarp sheds. But for the guy who's trying to build something nice, add value to the property and the neighborhood, they make it damn near impossible. So I'm hoping something will change to where I can pursue this project in the near future. So figured I'd just make people aware. So thank you.
Very much appreciate that,
Yep.
Andrew. Yeah,
Thanks, Andrew.
Board needs to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just
Yes.
briefly.
Yeah.
I think one thing, in a process when somebody's doing improvements to property pursuant to a variance is having continual, sending an engineer or someone out there to do updates and check along the way. So that way we don't erect structures that are then, 5 feet out of line. When we do have a structure that is 5 foot out of the line, the reason why we have to go through that variance process again is because there are public notice requirements of what is to be granted. You're noticing what the variance is going to be as it's applied for. And so if there is even just a 5 foot discrepancy that alters a setback or something, the public was not on notice of what that new variance is. You've moved it 5 feet. And I know it sounds like semantics, but it legally means it's essentially a new request for a variance. So I do think that the township was appropriate in doing it, but there are safeguards that we can put in place to kind of have an engineer more intermittently go out and check to make sure we don't end up in that type of situation.
Well, that makes sense. Oh, can't hear you.
So during that whole process, not one person stopped by my house to take pictures, measure anything up, do any sort of work whatsoever. So that's part of the reason why I was wondering where that money had gone, because I contacted them after the fact and they said, yep, it's all gone. It got used up, but yet no response. So that kind of ticked me off a little bit, so at least have an honest response on where this money's going and what it's being used for.
Do you have an
So,
approximate time frame?
this was 2023, I believe I filed for it. So it was in the 23-24 year.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
So if he would have known that he was gonna encroach on the side property line and he'd have known that he needed a variance for something else, if they were combined together, then it would have been a public meeting to cover both of the aspects, right?
That could be the case if the facts are as you're describing it. I'm almost hearing it as he did a survey of the property, was granted to put it in this location. Where it actually got constructed was 5 feet outside of that location and encroached further. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. While you're here, I just want to know. Get all the questions answered.
Okay, so when I proposed it, they said, well, we need a measurement on how far of a setback you would need, how much leeway you would need to be specific. I measured it off, and after I filed for the variance, they came back and said, okay, you're granted that amount. And after they told me I needed the wetland delineated, I thought maybe they'd have that on file already, but apparently not. So I hired a company to come mark out the wetland boundary exactly where it was. And that's when I found out that where I proposed it was I believe it was 4 feet shy of what I was asking for. So I needed another 4 feet out of that variance. So I asked if we could, so I went to the next meeting for the zoning and asked if, is there any way we can kind of fudge the numbers a little bit, make this work without having to file another variance? I mean, slide the building forward 4 or 5 feet would give me enough clearance, and they refused to do anything other than tell me I needed another variance. So.
Yeah, and I know that sounds like the frustrating thing, but just from a legal perspective, that sliding or fudging is the thing that then would allow the board or any entity who's able to grant a variance. It would be your Board of Adjustments, whether that's the Board or Planning Commission for you all. I don't know, I'd have to look at your ordinance. But whomever that authority is would be able to then wiggle it for anybody they wanted, which is why there's that strict and rigid requirement to come back in for another variance, because you are tied to what you applied for. And so if it's
Mhm.
outside of that, that's where that requirement is. I can't speak to exactly what happened with the fees. I wasn't the town attorney in 2023 or 2024, but just know you generally have somebody, maybe planning and zoning working on it. You've got an attorney looking on it. There are things that the fees go to. I can't speak to exactly what they went to back then.
All right, thanks, Dan. Yes, Dan.
Do they have to charge the fee every time though? Just because they come in and ask for a variance? I mean, he already paid the fee.
Yeah, the township could in its own discretion decide to waive a fee. If it's the majority vote of the board. Just think you're establishing a precedent then for somebody who, just in the future, think about ramifications. for
I mean,
future precedent.
he already coughed up $1,500 and now you come back and say, oh, sorry, 4 feet's gonna cost you another $1,500. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Mhm.
And that's a policy decision for the board to make, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm curious to look into this myself, but yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Andrew, thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, anybody else for public comment? Yeah, Wayne, come on up.
Wayne Ayers, 207th Avenue Northeast. I'd like to find out if anybody has this Saturday or Sunday called Divvies on the road patrol out front. If we can use that to repair Joe Drell Avenue.
Say that again.
If we can use the road patrol,
The road patrol?
yeah, to get Joe Drell straightened out.
Is it bumpy?
You know,
Yep.
full of holes, knock your wheel cups off, everything.
All right.
It's atrocious.
Okay.
The last time there was a grader in there was November. Okay.
Yep.
Didn't have a grader in over the winter. Okay, it's a damn mess. That spot where the Ace garbage truck was laying in the swamp. Okay, that's still a mess right there. So when are we gonna get the grader over there? That's my
Check on it.
question.
Yep, I'll check on it.
I left 2 messages for you this week and didn't hear back at all.
Yep, I was gone most of the week,
Okay,
so, all right.
the road patrol's not usable?
Highway patrol, you mean our cop?
Oh, the road patrol. The one sitting out front here.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay,
Oh,
I used to use Wallace Peterson's in the B tractor,
yeah,
but Wallace has died.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I don't think that one's up for rental.
well, it's about where we're at right now. Okay,
All right, fair enough,
Okay.
Wayne.
get the grader over there.
All right, thank you.
Gotta have it straightened out.
All right. Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close this portion of the meeting. All right, consideration or approval of the agenda. Is there any suggested changes to our main agenda? So I've got one I'd like to add in, 8.3 under old business. This is going to be the cemetery. This is doing the road. We have a little bit of an update on it. And then we have a portion that we may go into a closed session. So I'd like to put that at 8.4 if there's no objections, so that most of the audience can leave before we get into closed session. Everybody okay with 8.4 being a closed meeting? Okay. Is there any other changes?
I have, like to add, Metropolitan Mosquito Control District reimbursement application and recycling tire policy. It can be two
Seven dot-
discussion points.
7.4 and 7.5.
Yep.
Any other changes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Was this one added or an update?
Which one are you looking at? The annual wage thing?
Yeah,
That's already on here.
that's what I thought. Just wanted to make
Yep.
sure we didn't
Yeah,
miss it.
no, I appreciate that.
Motion to approve it. The agenda.
All right, there's been a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Lisa and Dan, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, and we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any changes or modifications?
Just that we recognize the resignations.
Yep, once we approve this, we'll make a motion on it and then we'll do that.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, motion carries 4-0 and 1 abstention. And it's always sad to see firemen leaving. We unfortunately have 2 that are resigning, Michael Beebe and Austin, is it Sully? Seeley? And I only know a little bit about them, but Andy, did you you know them a little bit better than I do? Would you like to speak on their
Oh, yeah.
behalf?
Absolutely, yes.
I figured you would.
No, definitely a huge thank you. I mean, Mr. Beebe came up with Linwood. He's made himself into a career firefighter in St. Paul and has really gotten busy with that. Sad to see him go from that aspect, but that door is not closed as he remains a trained firefighter to come back when life resolves itself to do that. And Austin been on a few years and he too joined and got some full-time employment, and life is happening with him and his family and just moving out of the town. So, but definitely great contributions by both. So sad to see them go.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and yeah, thank you, Michael and Austin, for all the time that you spent with the fire department. So, all right, any other comments? All right, seeing none. Move on to new business. So 7.1 employee wage increase. So I did hand out, there's one in the public copy out there also, request for action for this one. Typically what we would do is towards the end of the year, we would do employee performance reviews. Shortly after performance reviews, we would board would meet and talk about wage increases for the employees because of all of the things that have been happening and for various other reasons. We did not complete those at the end of 25. In working with our town attorney, I originally thought that we'd be able to do some retroactive stuff. And it doesn't sound very promising to do that. So I thought we'd probably need to take some board action on this as soon as possible. So our employees can be compensated appropriately. So the RFA is to talk about that. I looked up Social Security COLA in 26 is proposed at 2.8% increase. Recommendations I put in here was first to discuss whether wages can be retroactive to January, which I'll ask Mark to speak on. Then to discuss options or percentages for wage increases, then to determine who's receiving the wage increases, and then a motion to approve a wage increase. Obviously, there will be an overall increase in wages, but we expect that every year anyway. So and then I have a recommended motion in the request for action. So Mark, if you could kind of explain a little bit about the retro pay.
Sure. So retro pay is permitted in limited instances. The instances in which it's permitted is if it's essentially a negotiated part of an agreement with an employee. So if an employee is negotiating a new contract with you and says, you know, I will only continue to negotiate with you if I get retroactive pay at the time, if, you know, you award me the improvement. The Attorney General's opinion says that that may, not certainly, but that may then classify as what we call consideration. Consideration is just legalese or legal speak for somebody else's promise or benefit in a contract, right? And so no contract is valid unless there's consideration from both parties. You obviously are giving up something, which is an pay, right? You're giving up money. So essentially, from the consideration perspective of the employee, you want to make sure that you're getting something out of it. Because if you're not getting anything out of it, you then will run afoul of the public purpose doctrine because you've paid somebody for the work's already been performed, and now you're giving them what a court views as, or what the Attorney General views as a gift. And that gift is using public dollars to somebody's private pocket, which it does not look favorably upon. So in the Attorney General opinion that I provided you, I think a copy of it has made it to public packet as well, along with the memo that I wrote to the board. It kind of explains what I just said to you. The fact scenario in that Attorney General opinion was very similar to ours, to where the work was already performed. The individuals were already paid, and any back pay wouldn't get you any extra work or any benefit or anything that could constitute consideration. So retroactive pay back to January, I would advise, is not permissible pursuant to this Attorney General opinion. Attorney General opinions are not binding. They are not the law. They are not case law, but they are a very good indicator on how a court would look to it. And with a lack of any what we call binding authority, courts would look to this as persuasive authority. And I think that the underlying logic here makes a lot of sense. If you've paid somebody, the work's been performed, that contract for the work that's been done since January is already satisfied. And so you taking extra money and paying those employees would then constitute an unlawful gift that would violate the public purpose doctrine. Moving forward, if you wanted to, if you're in negotiations with employees, or an employee agrees to take on extra burdens for a duration of time, you may be able to then engage in some sort of retroactive pay because you would be getting consideration back in exchange for the pay that you'll retroactively be paying them. But we should talk about that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So in our handbook, we have a longevity wage increase. Being that that's in the handbook, could we at a minimum retro for that? Being that it was an agreement in the handbook? I guess it's not an agreement, it's just a statement in the handbook.
I would say it's just a statement in the handbook. I'll read the language now. I'll go take a look at it and let you know what I think.
Okay.
I likely will not opine differently, but I will take a look.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's definitely a guideline, not a contract or an agreement. So, okay. Yeah, Sam.
So I guess my confusion, not confusion, but my concern is, so we've got the legal part, which makes sense, you know, government should not be giving out gifts. That 100% makes sense. But it still remains the case that, you know, there's, in my opinion, a wrong that's happened here just because of, you know, general chaos of what's been going on with employees, disorganization, board members leaving, having to figure stuff out, where employees who normally get a cost of living increase did not receive, they're receiving it late, 4 months late. So they're missing out on that. And so can't retroactively pay them. That makes sense. Do you have any thoughts on how we could maybe right that wrong?
I mean, my thought would just be some fractional increase in what they would earn in a given year. I mean, whether it's 2.85 instead of 2.8.
Sure.
I haven't done the math on it. I'm an attorney. Don't make me do fast math. But, you know, working it in to essentially say, all right, you've missed out on, let's say, $800 or whatever that amount may be over the 4 months for a given employee. Doing the math to try and figure out then stretching that 800 over, you know, the next 8 months. And then figuring out what percent increase that would be that you would want to give them effective today or whenever you give them a pay increase. You know, that that then you're compensating them for work that is to come at a higher rate, which effectively comes out to the same as it would be if you were.
By the end of
compensating
the year, it'll even out. Right. That's my preference. I don't know how to do that math on the spot either. But I do think that we should be trying to rectify that.
Okay, other thoughts?
Could we table this until next one, figure out what it is to where it would be, you know, starting next month, and we can have that information and make a better choice?
My fear is that by delaying the pay increase any longer,
Okay.
it's just compounding the issue.
Yeah, I'd prefer to get it
Would,
done.
would
tonight.
2.85 be enough, or would it have to be 3?
Andy?
I would just prove it at what it is, and to that point, you come back, you're doing a delta difference anyways. You come back with that actual math, but to that point, it's effective and we're taking action on what it needs to be. Cause that essentially the roundabout math way that you speak of, we'd be solving the same thing, whether you did that now, next week, or in September. It would just be a different number
Sure.
to equal out the year that was different, so.
Is that gonna be difficult for you, Alicia? It changes twice? Okay. All right. That sounds good to me. I will work on that number for next time. And we
Okay.
can proceed with this tonight.
Okay. Okay, so that takes care of number 1 and number 2. The options and percentage for wage increase. We talked about the 2.8 and all of that. Number 3 is to determine who receives the wage increase. We just had 2 promotions. One is an interim promotion, so it may continue, maybe become permanent, or it could go back, that person could go back to their normal position. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that as to whether they would be included in on the wage increase. And then also the motion would need to also state that if either one of them returned back to their original position, it would have to be that wage increase would have to be factored in. They wouldn't go back to their previous wage. They would go back to their previous wage plus whatever the wage increase is,
I agree.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, any other questions or comments or discussion on this? Okay. So I'm gonna make a little bit of a motion on the fly here. So I'm gonna make a motion to approve an annual wage increase of 2.8% for all regular employees minus the coordinator and the interim clerk's positions, plus the longevity increase, and it becomes effective for the current pay period. And then if either the treasurer or the interim clerk returns to their normal positions, the new wage will be adjusted to include the previously mentioned increases. That makes sense?
Mhm.
All right. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just don't know. Should be at least 3%. 2.8. I mean, I got like a 1.8 this year and I thought it was a slap in the face, so. 3% cost of living, I mean, doesn't even cost the cost of living increase this year.
You think the cost of living increases are higher than?
Absolutely.
I
So-
agree.
So there's this and then there's the longevity that's factored in, and most employees haven't been here very long, so they get an extra 1% over the top of this.
If they're here a certain amount of
Yeah, I think
time
it's
or-
1 to 3 years, they get a 1%. If it's between 3 and 5 years or 6 years, it's 3/4%, and if it's over 7 years, it's a 0.5%.
Okay.
Something like that.
Although I guess, you know, if you're the longevity increase is not supposed to compensate for an inadequate cost of living increase, right?
Mhm.
So that's something to consider.
Yeah.
And
And the other thing is that, to Supervisor Ludke's point is that we can figure out what the loss of wages are in the previous 4 months. Then we're gonna come back a second time to possibly change this percentage anyway.
So Dan, if you're okay with it, maybe I could give you a call between now and the next meeting. I'll get my number for compensating and then we could talk about maybe adding on top of that to address the real cost of living. If you have thoughts on that, then we can propose that at the next meeting.
Sure.
Okay.
But for right now, we'll get this in place, so.
And Mr. Chair, just to give context, I do have your current handbook up at section 6.6, the length of service increase. 1 to 2 years is a 0.5% increase, 2 to 5 years is a 0.75% increase, and 5+ years is a 1% increase.
We'll have to go back. Andy, you might be able to help me on this. We had actually made a motion that should supersede the handbook.
Okay.
And we reversed that. That was in 24. That was when Supervisor Searing was still here.
There also is another clause that is not in that whether, I haven't seen the policy, but right there, that speaks to employees. And then there's another document that says not all employees get longevity. And there was asterisks around some and not, and it was very, very, very unclear. And there was no equity there in terms of, so you hear this and I hear you, I'm abstaining, obviously. I have no say, but I'm speaking to the fact that the board is saying all employees every time. And then do you know that's all employees, or now you might have some that are not? So I really encourage some homework on this subject.
We need to dig up that motion. The language that surrounds it and whatever Supervisor Ludke is saying exists as a document with these asterisks, because what Supervisor Ludke is saying is conflicting with your handbook, which says full-time and part-time employees are eligible for length of service increases. So we just need to make sure when we do our handbook update, this is really hammered out.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to both of you. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed,
Abstain.
abstained. So we got 4-0-1. Motion passes. All right. All right, we'll move on to 7-2. This is a local board of appeals and equalization. This is going to be rescheduled due to a missed publication in the newspaper. Did either one of you want to speak to it?
Yeah, the original date was April 16th and it's now rescheduled to April 30th at 6:30, same time, same location. Anoka County will be here. The board will need to still run the 16th meeting, open the meeting, reconvene. And then the board will also need to open the meeting on the 30th to convene it, and then the county will take over after that.
We have a workshop that night. That's a Thursday though, isn't
But
it?
no workshop, no.
So,
6:30 meeting.
so we need to make sure that we have 3 supervisors at a
Here on the
minimum here.
16th.
Yep, so we have
On
a
the
quorum, so we can
16th.
open and close it, but it's gonna be a 2-minute meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
So if anybody can't make it, like I said, we're okay to miss 2, but those 3 cannot be late.
And it's in a publication now. It's also been updated on the website and in the posting box for the new date.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you for all that, Julie. Appreciate it. Helped us from making a big mistake. All right, so the new date is April 30th at 6:30. All right, 7.3 RFA resolution to adopt the 2025 Anoka County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. Supervisor Ludke.
Yeah, so this plan here is the adoption. Essentially, the county every 5 years needs to go through their plan and they need to adopt the hazard mitigation plan for all municipalities. And essentially what we did is you list out things to make yourself eligible for grant reimbursement. So there's no cost to any of this. This is formality. The county has already, at the county board level, already adopted theirs. And they just need each municipality to go through and do theirs. So this is informational at this point, and then resolution, is that in bottom of it? I apologize for the length of it, but I wanted to make sure all the information was there, so.
All right.
Is the resolution in here?
I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it in this one, so we might have to come back at this one.
Okay, moving to table this then.
But yeah, the information in the packet is all there. That document is the county-wide one. And it's a county resolution that we're essentially approving. They just need buy-in from all the cities you can see and Linwood, so you can see in there what we've listed out. Go from there. So we'll get that from them and make that amendment at the next one, but the information's all there.
Sounds great, thank you.
And then I had on there also just a discussion overall, in terms of managing this. So I feel it'd be, to get somebody who manages this aspect, attends the county meetings and everything. This was going, unfounded from Linwood, unattended. Came to me in a roundabout way. That's why I just got it on here to at least get the action going. But I think in terms of emergency management, we should be doing something to help support the town should something happen. Have somebody be able to coordinate that.
Absolutely. We kind of met and talked about that once a year ago, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Great. Anything else on 7.3?
So would that be the pleasure of the board to move forward in that direction and get someone in that position appointed and come forth with that?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll have that all for the next meeting.
Yeah, sounds good. 7.4, Metropolitan Mosquito.
So this one is, we got this today. And I'll have Alicia speak to some of it because she spoke with them last week, but they're essentially changing their program. On multiple fronts. They used to go and collect tires at residents for free at their house. They had a policy and limits and whatnot, and then they also would reimburse municipalities who did tire pickup days. Linwood has just had a continuous running tire pickup policy, no charge, no nothing. However, they are changing their policy to, as you can see, they're only going to reimburse up to $1,000 per year, which, budget impact wise, want to get this in front of the board because, and like I said, we just got this today and I'll let her speak to more of what she had, but there's no RFA, but essentially this document is approving exactly what you see in front of you to get that $1,000. So at least the tires we do have in stock, we can start getting some reimbursement from them, but we do need to come up, with a plan after that. So I would, I don't know if Alicia, if you want to share anything when you spoke with them.
Yeah, so I got a phone call from them late last week and they just called to kind of touch base on where we were at with our plan and how we plan to move forward with that, I guess. They did explain that they do send people our way because we have such a high turnout of the tires that we collect. And they are very interested in working with us still and moving forward with that. I know they're talking about doing, I think it's like an annual collection day. So kind of just putting it out to the public and saying, hey, we're going to be at Linwood this day. Do you want to come and bring your tires that day? But again, they're just really looking to kind of see where we're at with the plan. They're very, very excited to continue working with us, was kind of the gist of our phone call. So any questions or feedback that you guys have or are looking for, they are open and eager to talk to you guys if you want to see what other municipalities are doing through them as well. And I'm happy to kind of facilitate that if you'd like and coordinate that and just gather the information and bring it back. They aren't in a rush for a timeline, but I think that they're worried we're going to leave them.
What do they pay now? They just take them for free?
It's free right now.
Yeah, they're essentially ending that program part of their.
Okay, and these are the new prices.
these are not prices. These are, you know, as of, they are stating prices for a vendor. So these are not anything that's indicative of them. This is not gospel. This is just a FYI. This is what, if you were to get your tires picked up, this is what this person's charging. We are charged for our tires. We just get reimbursed. That reimbursement is going away. So right now, our pile of tires, we can get $1,000, but if we're over that, it's coming out of our budget.
Yeah, we have probably 500-600 tires right now.
So that's the exciting I have is to discuss our policy and how we interact with this because
So they would reimburse us for the tires that we collected before.
they will they will give us $1,000. Essentially,
Now-
we'll eat that up because we have more than
Right,
that.
but I mean, before they didn't charge, they reimbursed us for everything we did? Is that what they
Oh,
did?
yeah, we got reimbursement from them through the process.
Okay, so it's just going to 1,000 instead now.
That's. So with that, I would, you know, I'd make a motion to, you know, allow staff to move forward with the MMCD city-sponsored recycling reimbursement program.
Yeah, I would like to at least keep something, at least we're not finding the tires in the ditches and all that right now, which is nice.
For sure. Was that a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That's really good program. Thank you. All right, and the ND 7.5.
So 7.5 is now
Yeah.
how we redirect and come up with a policy, because at this point, you know, we do not, our recycling program overall is not really ever entered into our fee schedule. So we need to, we're collecting fees. We need to get that corrected. So that's part of the fee schedule update that is coming forth with other items as well. In that event, to Supervisor Hendrickson's point that, you know, it's a good service. However, it is abused. We've witnessed it.
Yeah,
And
they bring in 50 tires at a time and it's like, I'm going, is this? And I know some of them have been a neighborhood where the neighbors knew that they were coming, so, well, you can take mine. But yeah,
there needs to be parameters put aside that, all right, you got your tires replaced on your car, you can bring 4 to 6 tires yourself from your address, whatever. So you're not, I mean, last week we had, you know, whether it was a business or not, they came in with their work truck. And, you know, they could have easily been collecting from job sites or whatever. And we're footing the bill at the township level because there's a cost to it. There's no doubt. So whether we charge a fee to recoup our cost, if it is just a good service and we're not, you know, that's on average, you know, you figure you're going to be out the $4 per that comes in. And that's, you know, there's no tire inspector. So it's not this tire is worth 4, this tire is worth 2 because it's wore out. They are all the same price and it's going to affect the budget one way or another. So for sure, you know, in the interim, how to, you know, direct staff to moratorium right now while we figure this out with the fee and what it is, because at the end of the day, if it's not that it's going away, we just need to rethink how it's being handled and stored and what we're gonna do, because if we just keep just this being out here right now, we could end up with 500 on Saturday, and we're just not staffed for it, we're not equipped for it, we don't have the funds for it to figure that out.
Well, as far as staffing, to load and unload, I mean, we already say you have to plan on doing that yourself. So there shouldn't be a staff cost to that.
Well, then you have to restack the pile because people unload it themselves. And then if you go in it's the damage to the building and the tires, you know, the alarm, that little sensor, we got to get that moved. That's a thing, but staff do handle the tires.
Yeah, I mean, if we were talking, you know, over a long haul of, you know, 10 or 20 extra tires, I'd say it's a small amount. The township absorbed that little bit for the convenience, but
that's,
I mean, I was the timing was fortunate that I was back there Saturday when Andy showed me the pile that got dropped off, and that was pretty overwhelming. So I'm fine with whatever you guys recommend. I would lean more towards a fee. Whether it's $4 or whatever a tire. If somebody's gonna bring a bunch in, we're gonna at least get that money back. If it's costing us to get rid of it all for the $1,000, at least we're gonna recover some of that cost. Sam?
Isn't the pretty simple solution to stop the abuse just to charge a fee for every tire over 4? So you bring in 5, you pay $4. Bring in 6, pay 8. That way it's not really, there's not really much cost to enforcing something like that, but then you're still accommodating like the normal people who are just like replacing their tires. They don't have to pay anything, but if somebody's gonna bring in a ton, then they're gonna pay on everything after or whatever.
Anything is an option to, Alicia's point, the event with them, there'll still be something along just having them here to where it's just, you're collecting for that. If you're collecting throughout, the only thing I'd say with that is we didn't budget for this is all so even that event there is still, we're taking in, we're still gonna pay based on that, $16 for every car that comes in, which again, discussion to be had, but it was not budgeted that way. So just the budget impact side of things right now, we are underwater, get this $1,000, which would really only, like you said, there's 600 back there. So we're gonna get it on average half of that.
Yeah. If it's not budgeted for, then I say, yeah, let's charge the fee.
So, like I said, at this point, I would just like to be able to work with them, see what they're talking. They have some events happening in the county coming up here in May to see how those happen or what is the structure of them, whether it be fee or collection process or what it is. And just to her point, they are sending people to us. The people who actually end up with the tires and do the reimbursement are sending them here because we're free. As it sits under Minnesota law, anybody who sells tires has to take tires back. So you can bring your tires right back to a tire store and pay the fee there too. So it's just some way, some shape or form, we got to make it the convenience factor.
Yeah, Alicia?
I just wanted you guys all to know that in September, D&G came and they picked up 454 tires from us. So at the $335 that they are currently charging, that would put us at $1,520.90. So we would be eating essentially the $520.90. I do think that if we decided to go with the event day, it would kind of push people more to come to the reuse center, right? Like then they come here all the same day, which would be a big event. However, we wouldn't be storing the 500-600 tires that we have right now. And I personally have never been in that building. I will say that, but I would imagine that is difficult for the staff back there to maintain and manage.
Fit in the building.
And that's another part of the problem is that the whole point of collecting it is they're supposed to be out of the rain.
The elements.
Mhm.
I think we should start charging now. Cause I know we exceeded it. Do we do the $3?
I was gonna say, are
$2.
these prices accurate?
Yeah, the $335 is what D&G is charging for a
It
regular.
says 2025, so they're still charging the same as they were
Mhm.
last year. Okay.
We charge $335 a tire.
That's an odd number.
Yeah, I would say $5 a tire is still cheap.
Yeah.
For car tires. I mean,
About 4.
Like I said, yeah. I kind of like the tire day thing. The only thing is if we only take in tires on a tire day, when people pull their tires off and they got no place to put them or we're not taking them, my fear is they're gonna end up in ditches. And then it costs us time to send out a truck, our public works guy to go out there and go through the poison ivy and pull tires out of the ditch. We do that enough with mattresses and box springs and love seats and couches right now that I don't want to see that get any worse.
And then we're paying for it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think $4 is reasonable. I know it's cheaper. I just had tires put on almost a year ago and I think it was like $1.50 or $2 a tire that they charged to keep them. So,
Hopefully people start
yeah.
doing that.
start, yeah, bring them there. But yeah, we can't, I mean, we can't operate at a loss as a government agency. Unnecessarily, and this is, I mean, it's a convenience, but it's, spending $4 a tire is not that bad either.
I'd like to make a motion of charging $4 a tire for to recycle them.
Motion on the table. Is there a second?
Or was yours?
Is there a second for discussion?
I'll second.
Okay, there's now, Andy?
My question, can we, just knowing where we're at with the fee schedule and what, I mean, we can arbitrarily change this for this, or that's what I want to.
You'd need an ordinance amending the fee schedule because the fee schedule is an ordinance. So, I mean, this is a really simple one. You could do a motion to authorize, town attorney to draft an ordinance amending it to $4 and then have the chair and, interim clerk execute that ordinance and get it out for publication. So the motion can get the gears turning, but it'll be just I mean, the ordinance is only gonna be this long, right? It's amending the fee schedule to put in standard passenger tire collection at $4 a tire. And then that's all. We're not gonna redo the whole fee schedule administratively. Then you just take that ordinance and you, in your town files, update this fee schedule. I don't need to redo the whole chart or anything. Then once it gets in the once it gets published in the paper, it's good to go.
The $4 for a tire, but that's just passenger tire. You got
Yeah, just.
you got
passenger.
other
Truck
tires, so you
tires
have
would-
to be
So truck
specific
tires
on,
would be,
right? So we have to be
what is the truck,
specific.
does it have truck tires here?
Just on, that's why I was trying to propose we just fees it, because we're gonna pay money in ordinance and public hearings and all this stuff. We have so many fees that we are in the process of updating, so I don't know that this is gaining us that much to just let these other events see how it goes. But that's, so I just soon let staff figure out the process and where we're at, because it would seem we're just eagerly jumping for something that isn't necessarily there.
Gonna be swamped. We don't get it done soon.
We just don't take tires. I mean, you could say that.
Right. Yeah.
And that,
That you can do without ordinance. right?
yes, exactly is what I'm saying. So we can clean this and do this right. And so, yeah, I'm not in support of that right now. I'm not saying that, I do believe in what we gotta do and figure something out, but I don't wanna spool up a whole bunch of fee schedule and notice stuff and all that for this, when we know we have to put everything back there in the fee schedule. We have other fees that we're working on right now.
Okay.
Capture it at once.
No, I think we should wait.
The only thing I'd add is I prefer if in the meantime we accept the tires, because like John is saying, we're gonna be paying the cost, but with the extra work of Jack going to grab them. So maybe until we have the fee figured out, we just take them.
That's also an unknown too. I don't think we didn't have tires before, and I mean, yes, they're in the ditches, but I don't think it's, if someone comes there and they don't have it, they're not gonna go there. We can take them, just same, it's just gonna eat the cost. I'm fine with that, but have a policy, because you could have 50 tires on Saturday. That's what we have back there. So to me, it's, yeah, we'll take
At least that much.
them for free and we'll take 4. You got more than that? You know, or Linwood residents only, because they're sending people from all over the metro up here, because we're free. No one else is.
I thought you had to be a resident.
No. You just have to have a driver's license to get your old tires here.
I think we need to
could do
change that
Just
policy.
Linwood residents and the rest, sorry.
Got to show an ID.
So Andy, you said that you're working on the whole overall recycling fee schedule.
Yeah, so us collecting fees for appliances, all that stuff has to be in there.
I would suggest, jumping on you, is to deal with it all at one time. If you're already adjusting and looking at the fee schedule overall for recycling, I would just wait and include this in on that.
Yeah, I agree. And even,
Do it all at
even
once.
just stop taking tires for now if we have to, it's fine too. I don't. If it's gonna cost us money, we might as well just hold off.
Wow.
Yeah, like I said, we can take it on a case, but we just want to make sure, and staff wants to make sure that it's the direction of the board and consensus that if you handle it and you take in, you know, a normal passenger amount and I don't think it's gonna affect, we just can't do it long term, so that's why we want to get that updated, you know, so I don't think it's gonna affect the budget that much. We're gonna recover what we can here. We'll adjust and come out on, and you know, these are happening in May, these other events, and we'll figure it out in terms of the cost, but I'm all about keeping part of it. It's just cleaning it up so it's right.
You guys think about Andy, his suggestion of fitting it? Thoughts on?
Yeah.
4 tires for right now?
That makes sense. 4 tires have to be a resident.
Okay, do you want to amend your motion then to
I will amend the motion that we will, at this time, we will only take Linwood residents up to 4 tires. And we will, until we come up with a pay scale for what we will be using.
is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
So that was just a policy change. You rescinded the $4 per tire.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
rescinding.
Okay.
No fee, just a limit on 4 tires maximum.
And a Linwood resident.
Yeah, and then are you guys gonna be able to do that? Checking licenses
Yeah.
and verifying? Is that gonna be difficult?
Yeah, if they don't have their license, well, we know a lot of people that are come in, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. All right. Anything, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank
That
you.
was a lot longer than I thought that was.
It was.
discussion Was gonna be.
It was a lot longer.
Sorry about that. All right, move on to old business. Thank you, Derek, for being so patient, but this way we can interact with you for more than 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Give me the time. Members of the board, my name is Derek Lind. I'm from Ramsey, part of ACIT. I've got some packets here and I promise I'll be brief tonight. I know you guys got a full evening here, so we'll kind of get through it real quick. One for each board member, lawyer, and the clerk. I only have 7. 2 of you guys are meeting for the first time tonight in person. I think I know some of you from before. ACIT's a citizen advocate group. We've been in business for 4 years now, working on election integrity just at the Anoka County level. We've been working with a lot of cities. So I'll go real quick through these. I'm not going to make a huge presentation. First page, 62% of people are concerned with cheating. That tells you right there we got a problem. Cheating in elections. Sorry. That tells you we got a problem. We got to do something. When you look at our levels of government right now, the federal government, state government, county government, city government, there's nothing really being done at most of the levels. That's why we're focusing on the city level. You know, Trump's trying to do some stuff. He has limited powers. State of Minnesota isn't doing anything. ACIT spent the first 2 years working at the county level, and we basically didn't get anywhere with those guys. We're starting to get a couple of votes. We got Jeff Reinert. He's very supportive of us. John Heinrich, there's 7 commissioners. We got 2. So we're not getting anything done. So what we're doing is we're dropping down to the city level. If you can look at the second page, that's how Linwood votes. You're pretty red out here. You're one of our reddest cities. I would say that if 62% of the country is concerned with cheating, I would say your residents are probably consistent with that or maybe even greater. They'd probably like to see some kind of action taken and nothing's being done. Page 3, this shows you what ACIT has been able to accomplish at the city level. When we drop down to the city level, we got 8 cities to hand count their votes. You were one of them. Thank you for that. 8 cities passed resolutions saying that having the machines count the votes wasn't enough. They wanted to hand count them too, just to double check them. State of Minnesota weighed in and said, you can't do that. We'll get to that later on. 2 cities at the bottom. I misspoke. Oak Grove and Ramsey canceled their poll pad agreements. Now they were a little different. Oak Grove did it a little bit different than Ramsey. Ramsey's resolution said we want to get to paper poll pads, but Oak Grove said we want to be done with these things. Next page is going to be a 3-pager. This is the legal letter that came out. And I want to spend a minute on this if you could. Mr. Attorney, I don't know if you've seen this. You probably haven't seen this yet. Okay. So Oak Grove cancels their pole pad agreement. They want to go back to paper. That's on September 30. 1 month later, this letter comes out. It's not signed by anybody. It's from Anoka County. If you look at page 2, I've got it highlighted on there. They threaten with a felony. Let's think about that for a second. If you check somebody in with a paper pole pad in an election, that's a felony. They point that out. These 3 pages are basically, the whole thing is an entirely illegal argument. Now, I'm not really good at this stuff, but people on my team are, and they looked at this and they thought it was a very weak argument with a felony threat. And it was effective. In poker, you call that a bluff. If you don't have the cards, you bluff, you raise the stakes, and it worked. Oak Grove said, you know, they backed down. They used electronic poll pads in 2024 because they didn't want their clerks getting in any kind of legal trouble. So it was very effective. But this is something that I think tells us a lot about where we're at with the county. By the way, 6 months later, the election manager, Tom Hunt, came out and said he sent the letter. Forgot to put his name on it. What's interesting about that is this 3.5 pages or this 2.5 pages is a legal document pretty much. Doesn't look like something he would write. And secondly, election managers usually don't threaten people with a felony. So we don't know where it came from. We have our theories, but we think the Secretary of State might have been involved. What do you have for the next page? I think I'm out of order.
1987 amendment.
1987 amendment. We went to the county and we said, we don't think you're reading the statutes correctly. They ignored us. We spent a lot of time up there trying to show them that we thought they were misreading the statute. We believe ACIT's position is that the cities have the right to choose paper poll pads. And the reason for that is there's no state law mandating paper rosters. I'm sorry, electronic rosters. The state law mandates the tabulators now, but not the rosters. We even found this amendment here and we showed this to them. And their response to us was, well, that's from 1987. That's an old amendment. They're basically laughing at us. We're kind of being bullies, and we showed that in the video. What's your last page? You have this thing from the state of Minnesota? Yeah. The last page there, if you were wondering why you can't count your votes, state of Minnesota weighed in, the stuff in the yellow there. He's saying you can't count your votes because it's not random. That's his reason. Think about that for a second. Linwood casts the votes. Your board passes a resolution to double check your votes. You just want to count your votes. The state of Minnesota says, nope, it's not random. That's the reason. You tell me if that's good enough for you. Okay, with that said, the point I want to make with all this, I'm not up here just complaining. If we have to do something about our elections and we're waiting for somebody else to do it, it's not happening. It's got to come from the city level. Why am I here at Linwood tonight? We need some cities to make a stand. We're asking you to cancel your poll pad agreement. Go back to paper poll pads. I think I had the numbers here.
So just in case the power goes out, we do have to have the paper rosters here anyways.
You've only got 3,422 voters. That was in 2020. In 2024, you actually had less, 3,384 voters. Secretary of State says the average on election day, these poll pads, by the way, are only used on election day, one day. You have 45 days to vote, but you only use these poll pads on one day. And I think about 60% of the people are still voting on election day. So for you, what are we talking? 1,700 voters? Can you check them off on a piece of paper? Would that work for you guys? I know it's not you guys, but I'm making the point. You're small. Same, well, actually, you're a lot smaller than Oak Grove, but Oak Grove they're making a stand. And we're asking you to join Oak Grove. This would be a nice time for you or for more cities to come forward and say, yeah, we don't want to do this. And by the way, you were one of the ones that we're talking about. You were one of the first cities talking about this back in the day until this thing came out, the felony threat. So that's all I had. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Questions for Jared? I think I talked to you about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But my concern was your letter about it and the costs issue. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, for sure. Lisa, please go ahead.
So for the cost issue, 3 years ago, the state had I'll call it a grant, it may not be the correct word. And they gave it to the county. We were supposed to get half of that money. The county kept all that money. So we basically did pay for the pole pads this time.
There's HAVA money that comes from the federal government and it works its way down to the city level. But a lot of times what happens is the city just lets the county keep it. And so they kind of build that up. And then they use that money to buy the pole pads, for example. We went back and researched that. So in a sense, you're kind of paying for part of that. I don't have the exact dollar amounts here in front of me. But so when the county approaches you and says, hey, we're going to give these to you for free, well, you could have used that money to pay for election judges or hand counters or something else. It has to be used for elections.
Yeah, so in short, my take on this is I think I've only been able to quickly skim the
Yeah.
materials you brought today, sir, and the Anoka County letter that you're referring to seems to cite to a different statutory scheme than kind of what I was discussing. So I'll talk about the statutory scheme that I see the issues with. Bob Rupee also opines the same way from my office. I know he was here when I was in Arizona. Bob and I have had quite a lengthy discussion about this. So the provision that I take issue with is Minnesota Statute 206.58 subdivision 1. That's a statute pretty unambiguously says once a municipality adopts an electronic voting system in one or more precincts, you must continue to use it for state elections. You all being November elections coincide with the state elections, so there's overlap in the system that you use. It then turns to a question of what is an electronic voting system? And it seems like the statute starts with a narrow-ish definition that if you just look at that definition without reading the next paragraph, maybe you would think, oh, it's just referring to the tabulators. So it defines electronic voting system as a system which the voter records votes by means of marking a ballot so that votes may be counted by an automatic tabulating equipment in the polling place where the ballot is cast at a counting center. The word I want you to put emphasis on, and I think this is where a court would put emphasis, is on system, right? It's not device. They're referring to system. Then it says an electronic voting system includes automatic tabulating equipment. So now that's your tabulator. That's the first piece that we're all thinking about. But then there's the entire system that surrounds it, which includes things like devices by which the voter will register the voter's voting intent, software, system documentation, system testing results. These are all things I think a court's going to look at and say, it is something you document the voter's voting intent on. It is system documentation of who's voting, where voting, and who's registered to vote. So I think ultimately a court will look at it and say, a poll book is a part of the broader system. I did try and get a call out to the Secretary of State, Justin Erickson. He's the general counsel there. I have not gotten a response back from him on his opinion interpreting this, but I feel pretty comfortable in interpreting it in that way. I think there's a lot of different things thrown out here. I don't disagree that there's concern about election cheating, that there should be great transparency in elections. I agree with all of those statements. Respectfully, how I hear what you're asking for is for the town board to stick their neck out on the line to make a stand for a change in the law. And I think there's a more proper venue to do that, and that would be going through the legislature to actually change the laws. But I do think you subject yourself to litigation if you do choose to stray away from using electronic poll pads, since you've already adopted them. I think you would be in violation of Minnesota Statute 206.58, and a court could, via mandamus, order you to go back to using those systems. It depends on how serious a court wants to take it too. If a court thinks the language is pretty unambiguous and clear, they could impose sanctions on supervisors individually for knowingly violating state law. So that is just something to consider as well. This last piece with respect to the precincts for review and counting, kind of a separate issue, right? But we can talk about it a little bit because I've talked about this with clients, and it is incredibly frustrating that we want our precincts to be counted. We're not guaranteed to get them counted because the statutory scheme sets up a system for the county to do it. I think the legislature's rationale, like it or not, is if we allowed every single precinct to request to be counted, the county board of canvases would be overwhelmed every single election. It would be super backlogged. And so that's why there's this random system based upon, I think, number of voters. I'd have to go back and look at the statute, but your precinct could randomly be selected by the county, and the county is the one who's in the driver's seat of that statute. And so, you know, you can stick around and hope that the county chooses it. You also can request that the county choose it. I remember having this conversation with Justin Erickson, the general counsel from Secretary of State, but the county doesn't need to honor that request. They may do it at their own volition, but they don't need to do that recount. So that's kind of my thoughts there. So I get it's frustrating. I just don't want to put you all in a situation where you terminate this agreement with poll pads. A court comes back and says, no, you guys have to go back to electronic poll pads. You incur all of the costs of that litigation. And then on top of it, you're going to be without an agreement with the county to do the servicing of the software, all of the know-how that they have. You're going to need to figure out where to get that from. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on it.
Very interesting.
Could I respond to that?
Yeah, Derek.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree with the attorney. The city of Cambridge was using poll pads for quite a few elections. I'm not sure if they got them in 18 or 20, but they just voted in May of 2024 to get rid of them. So that's an example of a city that was using them, and now they're no longer gonna be using them. Wasn't the city that made the vote, it was the entire county. County said we're done with them. So Cambridge had used them prior to that. Point you back to this amendment again, if you could look at this real quick. We believe that this amendment was a carve out. Our interpretation of that is if the county wants to use electronic poll pads, they have to ask you. And we brought this to the county and said, what about this? And they ignored us. So we view that differently. In terms of I don't want to get into the post-election review because that's a interesting discussion, but we had a precedent set in Big Lake where they were already doing this. They expanded the post-election review. He talked about the county being overwhelmed. They could send the ballots back here and you guys could count them here yourself. That's an option they have. They don't want to do that. So just a couple of responses. Oh, one last thing too. Oak Grove canceled their poll pad agreement. They already did what I'm asking you to do. And there was no legal repercussions or anything like that. They ended up using the electronic poll pads again. So you kind of do have options. It's just what you're doing is you're sending a message to the county. You guys aren't doing enough. You're not getting done. That's the same thing with getting 8 cities to pass these resolutions. We're trying to send a message to the county, do something, and they're getting there. You know, counties, they move slower than cities, but we got 8 cities out of 21. That tells you a lot. There's a lot of support for this. And I think we can potentially get more. I'm not going to promise you we're going to get other cities to cancel their poll pad agreement, but I'm going to promise you we're going to go to them and ask. You're not the last one. And my job will be a lot easier if I can say, oh, by the way, Linwood did it too. So I know you guys got to take care of Linwood. You're not here for ACET, but you matter. You matter when the other levels of our government are not getting it done. And when you're at 61% of the country, I'm sorry, 62%, 100% of us should be doing something. Because we should trust our elections. So.
Okay, thanks.
Last election, I was actually down at the courthouse and doing a guard the ballots kind of thing. From 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, there was like 800 mail-in ballots that came in. And I truly believe that, okay, in 2020, Keith Ellingson sent out a tweet. We need more votes. Get out and vote, bring a friend to vote and all that. I feel that he was looking at the poll pad information to be able to send that out and how many people were there to go out and bring their mail-in ballots to the post office, because the post office will, once they receive it, they put it into a bin and they bring it directly to the courthouse. If they don't have the information on who voted or who didn't, is a big way to save on voting fraud.
Mr. Chairman, could I make one more point? I just want to add to her point. I actually forgot to say this earlier on. There's about 10 things we need to do to improve our elections. Most of those things you guys have nothing to do with. But poll pads is one of the main ones. Poll pads is a way to keep track. When I check in on a paper poll pad, nobody knows I'm there. Poll pads have the names and addresses of all the voters, and they can combine that now with technology. When I hit that poll pad, I voted in the Republican primary. I gave money to the Republican Party. I answered a phone survey. They know who I'm voting for. Not 100%, but they got a pretty good idea. That's why they have these walk lists now. You know who the Republicans and the Democrats are. You can go knock on the doors. So I just want to add to her point. It breaks that circuit and it makes our elections more secure. Paper, we have to go back to paper elections. And this is a big step. So I'm not just asking you to do something. It's a very important step.
If the SAVE Act is approved or passed, then a lot of the laws that Minnesota made can be reversed. Because actually it was because of ACID, the reason a lot of these were done. I mean, the cast vote record, which makes the machines transparent. Legislation took that right of us to be able to see that. ACID requested the information for 2024 for the governor's race. Anoka County held on to our FOIA request for 6 months until legislation passed a law that we, the people, can't have the information that makes the machines transparent. They were nice enough to give us the information for, so when you put your ballot in, the cast vote record isn't the tape that comes out at the end of the night. It's a total separate thing. So you put your ballot in, it takes a picture and gives you data for each ballot. They were nice enough to give us just the data information. They wouldn't give us the image, so we don't know why. For the governor's race, it was 245 overvotes. Overvote is when you vote for more than one person. But for a mail-in ballot, a fold line can cause an overvote. On the back side was the judges. It was one judge for each thing. It was just under 1,000 overvotes for the judges. So the mail-in ballots is a big thing. We need to, if we could get rid of them, I would be pushing for that.
All right, thanks. Any comments, any questions?
I got it.
Yeah, Dan.
So you were saying we paid for the poll pads last year?
County
The county, so
bought new ones.
the state gave the county money and they were supposed to share that money with us.
They didn't.
Yeah, correct.
So we ended up paying.
We technically paid with a grant that we would have got. I call it a grant. It's something.
I think it's HAVA money. It's federal money. It goes down to the state and then flows down.
So we
And
ended up paying for those poll.
kind of, I don't know if it was the exact dollar amount, but they saved it up over 3 years. We did a lot of research on that. And then when it came time to, but a lot of times cities are okay with that. They're like, hey, you take the money, use it to offset our costs because you have that relationship with the county. You kind of share a lot of costs too, but basically they save up that money.
Like, that was my only concern. with
Well,
what you wrote was that we would endure those costs of the poll pads if we decided to get rid of them, but then they made us get them back, that we would have to pay for them again.
Well, you're gonna be paying for not just the hardware, but also the software and maintenance. And that's the part too that's concerning, is just the logistics of the software programming. If your poll pads aren't working, who do you go to as a licensed provider to get it? It's kind of a one-stop shop. When you have the county, they're responsible for all of that underneath your agreement to keep it seamless in the event of an election and issues with your poll pads, getting them up and ready for the elections, et cetera. And my kind of closing thoughts on this are just, I have a lot of gripes with, personal gripes with elections and how elections proceed. My job as counsel for you all is to advise you on what I think the state of the law is. I can disagree with the law until my face is blue. I will never willingly advise you to violate my interpretation of the law and how I think a court would view it. So this is my legal advice to you. You as a board may vote to do whatever you may choose to do. Just know that I have made you aware of what I believe the consequences to be and what I believe the interpretation of the law is.
That's my struggle. I mean, do I believe that there's cheating? I think there's been cheating since the first time there was ever an election. So how they're doing it and who's doing it, I don't know. As a board member sitting here, I'm trying to look at it in a couple different ways. One is I would like to ensure that every person that casts a vote gets credit for the vote that they casted. So I think that's something that we have to try to do is make sure that our constituents get a fair shot at elections. But on the flip side of that, I also have to make sure that we're fiscally responsible to the people. And if we make a decision here on this board that puts us in litigation and costs this township a lot of money, we have now gone against the whole purpose why we're sitting here. So I need to look at this a little bit further to kind of figure out the risk versus reward. That's my struggle in my brain right now. So that's, if we could move forward with very little risk and say, let's get rid of the electronic polling pads and go paper, I would be 100% in favor of that. But I don't feel like I'm at that point right now. That's my personal feeling.
So
Lisa?
there, Oak Grove, there is a lawsuit for Oak Grove. They put a lawsuit against the state of Minnesota? Or was it the county?
We don't know yet.
Okay, so there is a lawsuit. out
Hasn't been
there.
filed yet.
And I would like to add Linwood to it.
And I'm not asking for that.
Mhm.
I'm asking you to cancel your poll pad agreement. And by the way, Oak Grove and most of the cities in Onoke County share your financial concerns. They're all struggling financially. It's tough right now. But they voted 5-0 anyways, and they've had multiple votes on this, and they've been solid every time. They want to do it. And we're asking you to join them.
Sure.
Not in the lawsuit, but
No, I understand. Yep.
No,
Yeah,
and
so the poll
I don't feel that any government, even at our level, should know when we're voting and how. And if I show up or I decide not to show up, they shouldn't have a clue. Because if I don't show up and they know, well, hey, we can throw this mail-in vote in his name because he didn't show up. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, anything electronic can be hacked. I know enough programmers. They can all be hacked and the program can be wiped and nobody knows it was there. So
the point of my earlier presentation too was to show that not only are they not doing anything, they're fighting hard against us. They're trying to stop us. If you want to make it tougher to cheat, go to paper poll pads. It's real
Right.
simple. You guys can do two things. You've already done one. Do that other thing and you're done. After that, we're at the county and the state. So I understand your concerns. You need some time to digest this and think about it, but
Yep, for sure. Yes, Sam?
Are we putting staff at risk? You mentioned liability of us. What about staff?
I don't picture a way in which staff would be named. It would be the board as party. This is not for certain. This is just first impression. That it would be subjecting the board and possibly individual supervisors who knowingly violate the law at issue. I don't think liability would run to employees of the board who has made that decision and you as the employer directing them to take an action. I don't think it would run to employees.
All right. Any other questions? You guys comfortable to vote or you want time to think about this? Me personally, I'd like a little extra time.
And I will just say, I'll continue to see if Justin Erickson has a different interpretation from the Secretary of State of my read of 20658, that statute.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Murray.
Chairman Olson, I think you should take time and think about it. It's a big decision. And if the attorney wants to talk to some of our guys too, we'd love to talk to you directly. We got some other guys that are really good at this, not me.
They get big bills from me all the time, so I'll let them
Okay,
direct
I
if they want
understand.
me to
I
talk.
understand. I'm not good with the legal stuff.
No,
I'm the marketing guy.
I would be happy to speak with anyone if the board so wants me to. I'm more than happy to.
Okay.
I just don't move without the board telling me March.
Okay. We think we're right, but we'll see.
Is there a motion on the table?
not yet.
No,
No.
there's no motion on the table.
I'd like the motion to direct Mark to talk with ACIT's attorneys
Oh,
or ACIT's legal.
we don't
staff.
have attorneys. We just got people that have done research. The guy he worked for the county or the city for 35 years.
Okay, so
He's the guy in the video. Did you see the?
Robert?
Yeah, Bob.
all right, so I'd motion to direct Mark to work with ACIT just to hear out what they're proposing here, so that he can fully give an opinion based on what they're suggesting.
I don't think he's even seen the video. We can send him the video too.
Whatever you guys think.
It's a 6-minute video.
Lisa, is the correspondence that you forwarded to me, is that from ACIT? That would be the only interaction I've had with ACIT thus far. was receiving a memo, I think from the gentleman you may be referring to with 30-something.
Was from him.
Okay.
We have a video too where he goes through the statutes and explains why these guys already have the authority.
If the board wants me to look more at any materials from ASIP, please let me know and forward me those
At least
materials.
that video. And if that's,
I just sent it to all you guys today.
Yeah.
Hold on, so we have a motion on the table, but we don't have a second. So before we get any further in discussion, is there a second?
second.
Okay, now the motion's been made and seconded. Now is there any other discussion?
Where does it end? We just opened
The
up.
attorney's work?
We just opened up the town books to talk and talk and talk.
Well, how do we normally scope it when we ask Mark to look into an issue? Do we say a maximum of some hours or do we say at his discretion?
Whenever I do work for you all, I do work as efficiently as I can. If you want to scope it to a video, that's fine. If you want to put a number of hours on it or minutes on it, that's fine by me. I'll abide by whatever directive you give me on this issue.
Let me speak real quick if I could,
Go ahead.
please. With the reason we made that video is to tell the story and to make the argument. It's 6 minutes. In fact, he can watch the last 3 minutes if he wants. I think that's it. Bob's basically gonna regurgitate what's in the video. So I think 6 minutes is all we need.
I mean, yeah, my intention here is it seems like, Mark has an opinion that makes a lot of sense. But it also seems like there's some stuff that, Derek, that you're saying that Mark is just seeing for the first time tonight.
Yeah.
And so I guess like the gist of what I'm getting at is I'd like for Mark to take a little bit of a closer look. Doesn't need to be outrageous. So that we
Define a
can just
scope.
make a more informed decision.
Can you define a scope or a time limit?
Scope, time limit. No, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know how long. How
10
long stuff
10
is.
minutes.
10 minutes?
That's all we need.
How about, let's say 30 minutes.
Sure.
Does that sound okay?
That way, if you need to talk to Bob after that with any questions.
Yeah, realistically, if you want me to read through all of this, look at all of the statutes that are in it, watch the video, come to a conclusion, draft a memo to you, it takes time, right? So if you want me to do 30 minutes and show up and give you an oral opinion at the next time, I will do that. If you want something more in depth, I will listen to the 30 minutes. Just know you're not going to get a whole heck of a lot for 30 minutes.
Sure.
I'm not trying to spend your guys' money. I know money's tight. This is not our argument though. This is the county's. We don't think it's a good one.
I only bring it up because I know it can, called me 3 times last night. So I know it could be just going all of every which way.
It's a
So,
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I've
So if it's
gone down
opened
that
up.
rabbit hole
I
many
mean,
times.
I'm all for getting rid of them. We gotta put our foot down sooner or later. We're part of the government. We need to step up and say enough's enough. So,
Yeah, the question that I have going around in my head, and I was gonna ask Mark, but I'm not because he can't give me an answer, I'm sure anyway, is if he goes through and does all this research, is he going to now have more or better or accurate information to come back and advise the board any differently than he already has from a legal opinion standpoint? That's the question that I've got, because if we're gonna spend taxpayer money on having Mark research this further, if the odds are is that it's not gonna change his legal opinion of the township, then we're just throwing money out.
right.
I'm gonna be honest, I've perused this pretty quick without going directly to the statutory sites, but just enough to say it's a different line. The Anoka County memo is a different line of analysis than what I engaged in. That 6-minute video is the thing I have not seen. So that's the only thing where new information could be that based on my first impression of this, my opinion has not changed.
Bob produced like a 113-page legal document. And ultimately that's what, we were able to get things moving on. So he hasn't seen any of that yet. I think we got a case to make. And whenever he has questions, he reaches out, SOS, what do you think they're gonna say?
So I wanna get this to a conclusion here pretty quick. But attorneys for like Oak Grove, have they given a legal opinion to their counsel?
Yeah.
So is that would be public information?
I don't know. I wouldn't know that, but I know they proceeded. They voted 5-0. They've had several votes on this.
Because
And in the
I'm thinking-
beginning, he was skeptical too, their attorney was. And that's why I don't want to rush you guys. I want you to take time and think through this and, because I want you to feel comfortable with it.
Sure. That's why I think there's maybe more of a benefit to have Mark talk to one or both of those attorneys to see what was their take on it that made them advise legally different than what Mark is.
Sure.
He'd be able to probably get more accurate information talking to another attorney than to go through, 2 inches of documentation and a video.
Unless they're not able to speak right now. I don't know how that
Right.
works.
Yeah, that could be a thing. If they're in litigation, likely all of those documents are privileged. I'll say this, what Oak Grove or another township does, I'll look to as, maybe some sort of persuasive authority, but not binding authority, right? Just because somebody else does it doesn't mean that I would advise you to do it too. For me, the most important answer would be hearing back from the Secretary of State. And look, you could say, I don't like the Secretary of State. I could think their office is corrupt. I don't like the way that they do things. I don't like the way the laws are written. But at the end of the day, the state will be somebody who will be enforcing its election laws and would be the person who will be the party against you in any lawsuit, right?
Right.
State and or county. And so my personal thought is run it up that chain. That answer to me matters the most in advising you all. You might not like the answer from them, but at least you'll know their position, where they stand, and what the consequences may be if you don't follow it.
The Secretary of State, when the Cambridge, the Isani County decision came out in May of 2024, they agreed with it. They said, that's fine as long as it's made at the county level. That's what the Secretary of State said. But they said it was okay getting rid of poll pads, even though you had already used them.
Yeah, and
So
again,
they weighed in publicly on that thing that happened in May of 2024.
and I can't speak on the county powers. I haven't looked at county powers for poll pads and statutes. I've looked specifically for when municipalities adopt, what powers do municipalities have to undo the electronic poll pads? And that's what that 206-58 statute directly applies to, is municipalities. It's not bi-directional. You can't flip back and forth, is what the statute says. Once you adopt it in that precinct, you must keep using it in that precinct.
I'd like to see us table it for a meeting or two, because I put in a couple calls too and I didn't get responses. So
I'm gonna rescind my motion.
Send in your second. Okay, so that's off the table. So you want to table this then till we can get more information? Maybe Mark will have an opportunity to get with the state.
I have a voicemail out with him already. I tried to call him again today. I'm sure he's a busy guy. I just haven't had a chance to get his ear yet.
That sound like consensus of the board? All right, so we will not take board action tonight. We'll keep this on the old business schedule until we have a resolution.
I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me tonight. It's my job
Appreciate
to
you
get it
coming
to
up.
this point, and then you guys take it from here. So I got a lot of respect for what you're doing. Everybody, thank you very much.
No, we always
Is it-
appreciate the information there.
Is it okay if I run or? do you
Yes,
need me?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, thank you very much. for
Have a good
sticking
evening.
around.
Take care.
Yep. Good night. All right, so we'll move off from that one. Supervisor and employee purchase of the township property, Mark?
Yeah, I sent a memo out on this, so everybody should be pretty up to speed, but I'll just give a quick crash course on it. In short, there were protections in state law, particularly Minnesota statute 15.054, which prohibits political subdivisions, including townships, from selling public property to their officers or employees. I think the public policy reason behind that is pretty clear. You don't want self-dealing of the town board cutting sweet deals for town property to its officers, or its employees as well, because that could be a way that you're essentially gifting to your employees. So the basic rule is this: officers completely off limits. You can't sell town property to officers. Employees, you can do it, but it requires one of two things: either an auction by an independent auctioneer, or going through a sealed bid process like you would do in the municipal contracting law if you have a contract for over $175,000. It's a bit of a process to do that, right? So if we've got some propane tanks that we want to sell, probably don't sell them to an employee, just because you don't want to go through a sealed bids process or find an auctioneer to auction off a propane tank to an employee. I don't know what's going on with that old van. I think it was a van used for, we had a wheelchair lift or something, senior center, something like that. Now, if an employee is like, hey, I kind of want to buy that. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something worth putting the effort into doing a sealed bid process on it or something. And we can walk through that process at that time. But generally speaking, officers off limits, employees are allowed, but independent auctioneer or sealed bid process. And then just keep in mind always too, sale of goods, municipal contracting law, 0 to 25,000. You do what you want. 25 to 175, that's where you get your 2 quotes, keep one for a year. 175,000 and over, you're always in sealed bid land.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. All right, got that answered. Instead of going on to 8.3, let's do the upcoming meetings real quick and then we'll, oh wait, cemetery. Sorry, Craig. We got cemetery, 8.3. So this one got brought back because Craig had gotten bids from Dunaway and DW companies. Dunaway was the cheapest. We had some dialogue here, talked about whether to put filter fabric down underneath the gravel. He was on vacation, but he was kind enough to get back to me. But Craig Yoakum, I talked to him. He said, given that we have such sandy soil in this area, he said, unless there is some organic, reason to believe that there's some organic material underneath there, like an old swamp, which clearly there's not a swamp underneath it. But he said, other than that, he said, if it's sandy soil, he said he would not recommend using the filter fabric. He said typically if they use filter fabric on a project, they would usually ask for 15 inches of gravel to be put over the top of the filter fabric to hold it in place. So that would really throw our budget way off. So he was fine advising the board that we do not need to use filter fabric. He felt that the 6 inches of gravel or limestone would be sufficient. He said the only benefit that there would be in putting down a fabric would be weed control in our situation. So given that our other horseshoe road, we just every 3 years throw some more lime on it. He said he would just expect to do the same kind of maintenance on the new road. So that was the feedback that we got from the town engineer. So there is the 2 bids. The one is, the low one was 23,000 something. Do you remember? Okay, so Craig said, yes, it was around 23,000. So we have $6,000 budgeted for cemetery this year. So there's a overage in there that we would have to figure out where to fund the difference from. So Mark?
And you're saying bids, did we get this as quotes or as bids?
These are quotes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Did I use the
So-
word bid? Oh,
No, it's all good. You
used
said
that,
low,
yeah.
so you said bid and then you said
Right.
low bid, and that's why I'm like, did I miss a sealed bid process while I was in Arizona or something? Okay, no,
Have it.
quotes, you're good. Then we're just in quote land.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll keep making that mistake, I promise you.
I do too.
So, but right now we haven't yet talked about where we would fund the additional money from. So we'd have to figure that out. But if we wait too long to notify a contractor that we're gonna move forward this year, they're probably gonna have a full dance card. And it'll be it's gonna either be harder to get them to get time to get in this year, or the cost is gonna go up.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the board is comfortable making a decision to move forward with the project, not knowing where we're gonna pull that money from. But I'll leave it up to the board's discretion tonight. Thoughts? Comments?
I'm in support of it. I think it's there, but we have not touched finances. It keeps, we gotta focus on what we can focus on. And we heard it with potholes. We know we have stuff. We have a budget we need to finalize. If find the money then. Because we got a lot of money to spend this year on some big projects and we don't know where it's coming from and we just keep on taking new stuff.
Where's Sage at? Are we almost done with converting that over? Just for the purpose of knowing if we have money for that?
We got pushed back a little bit. We are meeting next week. Ashley and the Abdo team have the 2025 numbers. They're finalizing some reports and they have to get some stuff into Sage before we can move forward. If I had to guess right now, I would say that we will be implemented by June 1.
Okay. Is the problem that our finances are unclear, or is the problem that we haven't finalized the budget?
Both. I would say our finances they're clear to the point where they're there, but this was not budgeted. So
Right,
you have to
like-
take it from something else. So if you're
a lot of
willing to
money.
give it from parks and give it from recycling and take from the departments, and we could do it right now. But we just say do it and we don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
When that bill comes, where are they coding it to? So I'm
Who submitted the RFA?
for,
This.
who wasn't one. It was, I think it was just presentation at at 2 meetings
Yeah, I
ago.
I don't know.
Yeah, there
Greg was
was,
shaking his head, yes, so it was just a presentation.
Yeah.
I'd like to
it
see
is.
somebody submit an RFA with the financial impact and some sort of explanation of where this money's gonna come from. Then I'd be comfortable voting on it with that information in mind.
We got 2 weeks, 2 weeks to work on it, bring it back.
I think it's a great idea. I just don't,
Yeah.
I don't see we have the money for it right now. I mean, like Andy said, like people coming in complaining about the roads. I've been saying that since I came on, like we got other stuff that needs to get fixed, and Craig did a lot of work on it, and I appreciate all the work he did on it. And, you know, not that it will go away or anything, but you know, what else do we need to worry about at this time? You know, that's kind of,
Cemetery capital, do the cemetery have a capital fund?
no, that's
That's the
that's
6,000.
the 6,000.
That's
Yeah.
6,000. Yeah, so it's something that'll probably have to be saved up for then, or we find
You know, there again, like,
a pot of gold somewhere.
and there again, the cemetery hasn't incurred a lot of cost and there is
Right.
stuff, there's value to this. And the cost, albeit what it is, we could say it's $25,000 right now. To that one department, I get it. But that's why we gotta start working toward the plan. That's why we gotta start understanding the fiscal impact of decisions, because we got some big bills coming up here this year that was already cut significantly by, throwing out a round number of $180,000. So then I get we were approved at this last meeting, but people lose track. That's for next year.
correct.
And that was to keep the lights on for next year at a bare minimum. We need to be fiscally responsive. So
We
I'm
did
in
get-
support. I'll work with you and we'll figure something out. But I can't just say yes to something I don't know.
I mean, we did
Yeah.
get some capital for some of the other things
Here.
for
yeah.
next year, but you know, we didn't get it for cemetery, but people have to realize that we can't do everything if we don't start putting capital away, and if they don't give us the money, it's hard to do these projects.
All right, we'll do some homework on budgeting and see if we can find a place for it. We'll bring it back. Yep, come on up, Craig. Then you're closer to the door.
Craig Rylander, Birchwood Circle. Thanks for your time. I'm just wondering if it would make sense to, this project is sort of a three-pronged approach. It's tree work, it's the driveway, and it's fence removal. The driveway itself, the bid, quote, was $8,050. Would it make sense to try and get the driveway done this year and, leave the trees and the fence? Otherwise, the tree work was the most, really, $10,000 and roughly $5,000 for the fence. So I'm just throwing that out there. If it's something else we could think about, just getting that one part done.
I think it's a great idea. Can you check with Dunaway to see how much their price is gonna change if they're not doing the entire project? If we just have the
I
road?
can, yeah.
Yeah, I would just double check and make sure it stays at that number and doesn't go up.
Sure, I think it would be pretty much the same equipment. Maybe less when it comes to that tree work, but I'll talk to
Yeah.
them.
If you don't mind.
Okay,
And we'll see if we can get this figured out by the
I
next
think
meeting in
that's
2 weeks.
That's a more reasonable, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I'd be more apt to do that, come up with
Yeah.
2,000 rather than.
I agree. I like that idea.
okay. Thank you.
But yep, thanks, Craig. All right, so we'll bring that one back. Okay, so now we'll get into the meetings. So we got the town board workshop on April 28th, 2 weeks from now at 5:30. Parks meeting on April 20th, 2026 at 6 o'clock. Planning and zoning on April 21st, 2026 at 6 o'clock. And then we've got the, as Julia pointed out, we got the local board of appeals and equalization, rescheduled for April 30th at 6:30 right here. And the next regular town board meeting is scheduled for April 28th, 2 weeks from now, 6:30 right here. Is there any meetings or anything that I missed?
The parks, they will be touring all the parks. So I don't know if that matters.
Yes,
You're doing a park tour instead of a meeting, and so I did update that on the board and on the website and also on the calendar for that.
And they'll be starting at Fairway Flyers. for
Yeah, they're starting at
location.
Fair Flyers location, and I also will put something on the door for anybody that comes that wants to do that, so they know to be there at 5:30.
perfect. Awesome, 5:30 at Flyers. All right, anything else that I missed? All right, thank you for that. All right, I have a question. I missed something earlier in the consent agenda. Mark, I'm not sure how to do this, but we've got one set of meeting minutes. The set of meeting minutes from March 24th, 2026 was town board meeting. And as I looked through that, a simple one is the attorney that was present was Rupee, not Ruby. So his last name can be changed. More importantly, under new business and all the way down, there was no motions documented. So like the clerk's resignation, we'd actually made a motion, and same thing with park, same thing with cemetery. So even though yeah, March 24th. So if can I make a motion to pull that from the consent agenda so we can redo that, even though it's already been passed once? All right, so I'll make a motion to pull from the consent agenda the meeting minutes, town board meeting minutes for March 24th to be revised and brought back to the board later for approval.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed.
I don't know how, did I come out of an abstained one? So I abstained over the whole consent anyway, so. It's not related to it, but
No, it's since the provision is not, what is being voted on from consent agenda is not anything that you're directly conflicted out of, you're fine.
So that passed 5-0. So yeah, if you can take a look at that and get that corrected, thank you. All right. So now the last thing that we have here for tonight before adjournment is we have to go into a closed meeting. This is something that came up later this afternoon. So I'm just going to read this. This meeting will be closed to the public under the authority of Minnesota statute 13D .05 subdivision 3B for the town board to discuss ongoing litigation with the township's attorney in the following case, which is Catherine A. Kirchner and Daniel V. Kirchner Jr. Versus Linwood Township and other parties. So at this point, we'll go into a closed session. And you guys can stick around till the end for the adjournment, or you guys can leave. All right. And if you're leaving, then we'll close the doors and we'll just meet in here. All right. So we'll just, we'll give this 5 minutes so everybody has the opportunity to leave. And then we'll go into closed session.
We're still on the record.
Okay. All right. Before you leave, I don't have to read all that again, do I?
No, just motion according to the notice you just read.
Okay. I'll make a motion according to the notice I just read, to go into closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, so we will come out of closed session and resume the board meeting. All right, last thing we have left is to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion been made, seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned at looks like 8:34.
Alrighty.